Welcome to the Under Construction Podcast with me, Martin Williams. Here we talk about how to build or rebuild your life one step at a time. Let's get to work. And thank you for tuning in to the Under Construction Podcast. My name is Martin Williams. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You may do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. All the links to the podcast can be found at guidedexpressions.com/podcast with an S. Or if you're listening on YouTube, you can also find those links in the description box. Today, my topic is stop putting unnecessary pressure on yourself. So, I don't know about you, but my job can get a little stressful at times. And I can definitely feel the stress, just in my body. I can feel the tension. I can feel the escalating pressure. You know what I mean? It's something that's very palpable. And, there's times when, it really feels uncomfortable. I don't want to say that I have the hardest job in the world, because I don't, but it can get busy at times, and you may be in a similar situation. And when I looked at where all the stress was coming from, when I looked at why am I feeling this way? Why am I always so stressed out? I really began to see that it was pressure that I was putting on myself, right? Because I want to perform at a high level. I put that demand on myself. I want to do things at a high level. I want to do my best and all of that, right? And, there's times when you do your best and, you think you're prepared and you think you got everything laid out, there's things that come that are unexpected. So I had a meeting yesterday, and it was a meeting in which I was leading, and there were at least 9 people in the meeting. May have been more than that. And, I had prepared my notes. I had prepared some metrics for a project. And, as much as I thought that I was ready for the meeting, it just seemed like one after the other as the meeting wore on, there were questions and comments and things that were brought up that I wasn't prepared for. I didn't even see it coming. And instead of just being easy about it and just saying, this is a project that I was thrown on within the last week or two. And I was thrown on a project at the busiest time of the project. And, it's just a lot of uncertainty, right? But that's life. In life, there's always that air of uncertainty. There's always going to be things that you can't plan for. There's things that you can't really anticipate. As much as you want to be ready for it, the bottom line is you can't be ready for everything. You can't anticipate everything. But you can also, you can at the same time have the type of mindset that says, you know what, no matter what comes, I'll be ready for it, and not being stressed out. And that was something that I didn't have at the moment, yesterday. When I was going through it, I felt angry because I felt like I should have been more prepared. I felt like I should have had a better handle on everything, and I didn't. But the bottom line is, and not to make excuses, but, certainly, when you're drawn on a project 2 weeks before a huge deliverable, there's a lot of catching up. There's a lot of scrambling. There's a lot that you have to do. And the person who was on the project previously isn't going to remember to tell you everything that you need to look out for. That's just life. And it's the same way, if the shoe was on the other foot. If I was leaving a project, I would certainly try to give the succeeding person all the information that they need. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to remember to tell them everything that they need to know. And there are certain things that are going to come up that they're not going to be ready for. and it's not their fault. And, it's not really anyone's fault because no one's perfect. My point in saying all of this is that we can put so much pressure on ourselves that we start to do damage to ourselves, to our confidence, to our health, right? To our mood, and the people around us begin to be affected. So throughout the podcast, I pull a lot of things from the Bible because I'm a believer. And one of the things that the Bible says is that God will fight for you. And what that means is that he will fight with you, but you have to allow that spiritual nature. You got to allow, that higher self to lead the way. If you're leading, if you are leading the way from like your earthly place, right? So if you're trying to do everything by yourself and not partnering with the infinite, then that's when the trouble starts, right? But there's something that you have to really lean into, in my opinion, if you're going to not put pressure on yourself, unnecessary pressure on yourself. I think you should hold yourself to a high standard. I think you should expect to be the best in whatever you do, but understand that with that expectation is going to come work and it's going to come challenge. And, there's going to be some things that are going to come that you haven't done before, you haven't dealt with before. So you can either, run from the problem or you can rise to the occasion. But the way you rise to the occasion is I'm not trying to do it in my own strength, right? I'm allowing that higher self I call God to come in and do what I can't. One of my favorite prayers is, or one of my favorite sayings, I should say, is work as if everything depends on you, but pray as if everything depends on God, right? And what I mean by that is we have a part to play and God has a part to play, right? So the easiest way and the most simplest way to remember this is this, right? When you do everything you can, God will do everything you can't. So the way that I should have handled the meeting yesterday is to prepare as best I could, but then pray and then ask God to handle the things that I can't handle and to work the things out that I can't personally work out. Because when you're working with a team, and I'm working with a team of, over 9 people, right? There are things that I cannot oversee. And that to me is that's the beginning of wisdom, is understanding what you can and can't control, right? Let's say that you're in sales or maybe you have your own business. You can't control the behavior of a customer. I don't care how many books have been written that say otherwise. You cannot control what a customer buys or what a customer wants. You can't do it. The best thing you can do is make a great product or make a great service and hope that enough people buy it, right? That's the best you can do, okay? Because at the end of the day, all you have control of is yourself and what happens in your business, right? Now, how does God play in that? Do I ask God to make people buy my stuff? I could. But what I think is a healthier prayer is, God, connect me and connect my product with people that can use it and that can be blessed by it. Connect people, and we're connected all around the world, right? Through this thing called the internet and through this thing called social media. So I can connect with someone in Africa or Asia or Australia or Europe or South America at the click of a button, at the push of a button. I can connect with anyone around the world as long as they're on that platform. So I think a better prayer is, Lord, connect my product with people who can be helped by it, right? And, the more you pray that and the more you believe that, because God works by faith, right? So the more faith you have, the more that connection is made. Maybe, you're going through a health challenge right now, and, the doctor has said that there's really nothing else that he or she can do, right? Well, just because the doctor says that there's nothing that he or she can do, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the story, right? There's things that you can do, and there's certainly things that God can do. So what you can do, maybe it's an issue like high blood pressure or diabetes or something like that, where if you make certain lifestyle changes, you give yourself a better chance of beating it, right? So you know what you can do. You know that you can, probably eat less processed food or fast food, drink less, sodas and things like that. Just eat less sugar, eat less salt, whatever the case may be. And so, you can kind of clean up your side of the street and then pray to God to do the things that you can't do. Ask God to, to heal you. And I know that seems far out for a lot of people, but, there are people who've been healed just by having faith, having faith that, that this power could heal them. And it's happened, and people have done it, and people have experienced it. And so I think a great way to look at it is, well, why not do both? Why not, change your lifestyle? If you need to stop smoking, then, do whatever you can to stop smoking. And, you may need divine help with that. Just say, God, just don't give me a distaste for cigarettes or cigars. Like, take that taste away from me so I don't want it anymore. That's something that you can do and have the faith to do, right? So I took a couple of turns, but I want you to understand, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself the grace that you need, because we all need grace, right? People in our lives need grace. Our children need grace. We've been having some issues with our daughter's behavior. She's a good kid, but, her behavior has been a little up and down, right? And it's been a large part of it is, we're coming off a pandemic. I mean, we're still in it technically, where kids have been home a lot. And, with being home, it means more screen time as much as you try to limit it. And it also means some influences that we're not necessarily crazy about, connecting with, other kids that, aren't really the type of influences that we want around our daughter, this negative influences, bad behavior, so on. And so it can be very frustrating. On top of everything else, you have a kid that doesn't want to listen, right? But what I've had to, realize for myself and for my wife, it's like we have to have grace. She's a kid, and kids are going to do kid things. And so, we want her to be someone who has the best opportunity to succeed. And part of that is, us giving her the parameters to live by. But at the same time, she's a kid. So it's walking that tightrope of, yes, there has to be boundaries and there has to be guidelines, but she's a kid. So, we got to understand that she's growing and she's learning the world and she's learning life and she's learning it faster than we did because of, the internet and social media. And there's just a portal for kids to find things out a lot quicker than we did, a lot quicker than our generation did. And so, all of that has to be managed, right? And so my point in all of that is, I can put a lot of pressure on myself, and I know my wife puts a lot of pressure on herself, and none of it's helpful, because at the end of the day, it's whether you got the job done or not. Whether the job is, your 9-to-5 job, your business, keeping your health intact, keeping your marriage intact, raising a good kid, whatever the job is, it's, did you get it done or not, right? Because no one really cares what you went through in order to get it done, unfortunately, right? Most people don't care. They don't care about the story. They just want to know, did you do it or not, right? So when you start living from that bottom line perspective, did you do it or not, right? You can make less space for the pressure, right? When you look at like the physics and everything else, like when there's no space for pressure, right, then the pressure can't exist, right? The equation for pressure is force divided by area. So area, we know, is basically space, right? The space of a container or what have you, right? And so, the less area, right? And really the less force, I should say, the less force you put into that equation, the less pressure you're going to have. So when you're trying to force things, you're not going to have any pressure, right? Yeah. When you're trying to force things, you're going to have more pressure. It's early. Sorry. The more you try to force anything, the more pressure there is, right? So that's a great lesson too. Like, don't try to force something that isn't happening, because you're just going to bring more pressure on yourself. But the other side, where I was originally trying to get to, is that when you zero out the area, when you provide no space for pressure at all, it goes away. It just completely goes away. So you've got to decide, okay, the bottom line is, this is what I have to do. Did I do it or not? I got to do this podcast, but I'm tired and I'm frustrated, and my job is stressed and family stressed me out, and, bills and blah, 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 right? All that stuff is valid. It's all valid, right? But did you do it or not? Did you get it done or not? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. And when you do not allow space for pressure, it goes away. It just goes away, because there's nowhere for it to be. There's nowhere for it to exist, right? That's a physical phenomenon that's been studied out for hundreds and hundreds of years. So I didn't just figure that out just now, right? Right? This is truth. This is a fact. So when you I make no allowance for any of it. It's either I did it or I didn't. It's very bottom line thinking, right? So when you go into your week, just, start to look at things from a bottom line perspective. Did I send the email or not? Right? Did I do the podcast or not? Did I create the product or not? Right? Did I test it out or not? That's all that matters. Okay? Because you're going to have challenges. You're going to have things that come along that, it's just life. It's just life. You can't get away from life, right? But the point is, with all that, is getting it done well, and just not allowing the pressure to build up, and certainly not putting it on you. So I went a little bit over today, but I really wanted you to understand my heart and where I was coming from. So hopefully it helped.